Good evening. Welcome to Xenia City Council meeting, April 8th, 2021. We'll begin with a moment of prayer by Councilman Walsh.
Sure, let's go ahead and rise. Father, thank you for today. And God, I just thank you for the warm weather and the rain and the sunshine. Just once again, reminders of your providence in our lives. And God, just pray that in the busyness of our lives, God, we could just stop and reflect on that, be in awe of you. Father, pray for us tonight as we're here doing the business of the community and the folks of Xenia. God, help us to lean hard on wisdom and God, be good stewards, because that's what we are. Father, we've been entrusted by folks to make decisions for our city, and Father, help us to do that with wisdom and not with trying to gain folks' favor either, Father, but to be fair and just in what we do. Father, we also thank you for the Kennedy family, and we pray for them even now as they're over there meeting with family and friends in mourning the loss of Jim's life, but also, God, just reflecting on the amazing things that you allowed him to do in our community and his family. So we just pray for peace for his family and peace for this next year as they lay him to rest tomorrow. And we thank you for your providence in his life and the guarantee that he's with you. Father, we thank you so much for that. We just praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Duke.
Vice President Dean?
Here.
Councilman Scrivens?
Here.
Councilwoman Dean?
Here.
Councilman Branham?
Here.
Councilman Urschel?
Here.
Mayor Mays?
Here.
President Smith?
Mr. Vice President, I'd like to make a motion to excuse President Smith.
Motion made by the mayor to excuse
I'll second.
President Smith, seconded by Ms. Dean. Roll call, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. We will now move on to our approval of minutes for the March 25th, 2021 meeting. Do I have to get a motion for that?
Motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Scriv.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Councilman Scrivens and seconded by Ms. Dean. Mr. Duke, or any comments? No comments? Mr. Duke, please call the roll.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
We'll now move on to special presentations, which there are none. So then we'll move on to audience comments. Anyone who wishes to give an audience comment, please move to the podium, give your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, seeing that there are none of those, I will close the audience comments. And we have no old business or public hearings, so we'll move on to new business. Ordinance 2021-08, amending Ordinance 2021-07 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the City of Xenia, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We are requesting an appropriation ordinance for two purposes this evening. The first is to deal with traffic signal or a crosswalk signal here just outside of the city building at Main and Whiteman. Some of you may be aware that there was a truck that struck that signal, and there's a need to repair it, and not only to replace it, but also to bring that crosswalk up to proper engineering standards. And so we're requesting that this evening council would appropriate the dollars necessary to do so. The second reason that we're requesting an appropriation this evening is related to some security recommendations that were made. The Ohio Supreme Court conducted an audit of the Justice Center, and as a follow-up to that audit, a feasibility study was done by Architecture to see what they could do to meet some of the recommendations that were made as a part of that study. App has completed their feasibility study, And now we're requesting dollars this evening for proposed design of that, those changes that would enhance security at that building. So we're requesting appropriations for those purposes tonight as an emergency.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion as an emergency?
So moved as an emergency.
Moved by the mayor,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Urschel. Any discussion?
Mr. President. Could we get the law director's opinion and her perspective on this expense?
On which part, Councilman Scrivens?
On this ordinance? So we plan to spend some money to do something here, so.
Specific to the security at the Justice Center, is that the
Right,
portion you're
mhm.
requesting?
That's, the Supreme Court does that for any court in the state. They'll come in and do a free, they'll do a survey of the security issues. They'll look at the organization and management of the court itself. When Judge Lewis became judge, he asked the court to come in and look at those things, both security, management, organization, how are the clerks doing. So he had the Supreme Court do a very thorough review. The biggest security issue, from my understanding, that we see at the court is it's a requirement, and has been since the early 2000s, that people that come into the court areas be screened. Right now, with the layout of the building, the only way people can be screened, the only space for a machine is people that go into the courtroom itself. That's no protection for the people that are sitting in the lobby. Any of those people could be hurt. So what the Supreme Court recommended is that people get screened. I know that's been a concern of the city managers for a while as well, not just the court, but the Justice Center as a whole, to be able to screen people as they come into the building. So now that we're on notice and the Supreme Court has said you need to do this, we really do need to do it. I think the design is just the first step.
Yeah, I would just contribute a little bit as well, and council recall, I provided some insight on this in a memo here a few weeks back. This is not a brand new issue. There was a new report conducted under this judge, but the prior administration, judicial administration across the street, when Judge Murray was here, had a similar assessment done. So this is something that's been hanging out there for a while. It's time to take care of it. I think we probably would have preferred that we would have planned a little differently in our budget process for this, but nonetheless, it is a need. And as the law director is suggesting, this is a need that really is not just relevant to the court, but considering the nature of the services in the facility, which includes our civilian police staff, prosecutor, the law director's office. These are folks who, face some obvious risk as well. And so, as I had indicated to the council, the preliminary concept would be a small glass atrium that would be an addition that would provide an initial point of contact right at the Market, or an initial point of evaluation right at the Market Street entrance, rather than inside the superstructure of the facility itself, which really, as she suggested, provides no security at all. By the time you're going through a metal detector, you're really already in a very vulnerable area.
We're already upstairs.
So, again, it's not ideal. We have talked with the court about the ultimate cost from a construction standpoint, and the court is willing to contribute half of that cost. So I think that is a fair gesture on their part. I would just add probably my greatest concern overall, if the project or when the project is approved, you got to pay manpower to stand at that security checkpoint, and it has to be qualified manpower. In other words, we have to have folks who have arrest capabilities, who are carrying sidearms, and so you're looking at certified peace officers in some capacity, and that's going to carry a cost with it. So we're working on that, evaluating what the options are, but again, concur with the law director and finance director that at this point we need these initial dollars to be able to do the design so that we can get a hard estimate.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Law Director. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President.
Any other questions?
No, I think once you get to the metal detector, you're actually in the hallway with all the probation officers, and you're in the hallway with the judge's chambers as well, too. So you've entered the court
You're already
before
there.
you've been
Yeah,
screened.
yeah.
Right. So
You're already in the area of the deputy clerks and
Right.
individuals who are not armed. And so
Right,
it's
right.
a clear vulnerability.
Well, and it's more than just staff. That court handles small claim complaints too. It handles evictions. So you, for example, you have a tenant that's mad at the landlord for trying to evict them. You know, you can have assaults right there in the waiting room. So it's really about being able to protect not only the staff, but the public that utilizes that court.
What are our legal responsibilities in the context of how from the Ohio Revised Code, our interaction with the court? And there's some statutory things in terms of our funding responsibilities. Does this fall underneath the context of that statutory requirement as well?
Yeah, so from a financial standpoint, the court is, I wouldn't even call it a component unit. It's an actual unit within our accounting and budgetary system. Obviously, it's under a separate elective authority, so the judge is elected by this jurisdiction, and the Xenia Municipal Court is identified specifically in statute, as are all municipal courts in the state of Ohio. So the judge represents that entire district. However, as it relates to indemnification, financial procedures, human resource assistance, all those different administrative functions, those are subject to the assistance of our city administrative staff.
Per the ORC.
Per the ORC, absolutely. So in this particular case, you know, we have a good relationship working with Judge Lewis, and we recognize that this need is not purely for the benefit of the court, but as Danette suggested, for the general public and certainly for our other employees in the building. So we do have an obligation to meet the security standards of the Supreme Court, and that obligation ultimately financially falls on the city.
Thank you. I just had one question about the second, or actually the first item. It's my understanding that those crosswalk beacons will be the ones that are similar to next to McDonald's on West Main Street.
Yeah, that's what we're projecting. I don't know that the design is completely done yet, but the current, what we had previously that was taken out via a unclaimed accident was not up to code with the Uniform Traffic Manual. There has to be something, frankly, more robust at that crosswalk. We felt like this needed not just to be replaced, but to be replaced the right way. You all are in this building fairly frequently. The crosswalk traffic there is significant with the retail merchants we have next door and our services and county services and so forth. And we don't want to see anybody get hit. So unfortunately, cars do tend to accelerate in both directions right about that particular zone. So this would be something in terms of look and feel similar to what you see at the bike trail crosswalk on Main Street. It would not be the overhead beacons that we have on Detroit, but the flashing beacons that we have on the bike trail crossing on West Main.
West Main.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Roll call, Mr. Duke.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving on to ordinance 2021-09, an introduction, amending the official zoning map of the city of Xenia, Ohio to rezone 53.4 acres more or less at the intersection of Van Eaton Road and Lower Bellbrook Road from PUD planned unit development in A-1 agricultural district to 44.7 acres of R-1C, one family residential district zoning and 8.7 acres of R-2, two family residential district zoning. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. The city has been approached by the owner of this 53.4 acre parcel, and as indicated, it's over at near the Van Eaton and Lower Bellbrook intersection. This was originally annexed to the city back in 2006. Initially, a PUD concept plan was approved for the property, which called for approximately 130 single-family residential lots. At this time, however, the property owner wishes to position the site for development and has applied for a rezoning of this particular property. In the rezoning, they're seeking basically a straight R1C, as indicated with the acreage, with a small portion of the 8.7 acres to be designated the R2. The total resulting development would include 146 or so single-family lots and 8 duplex lots. Staff has worked with the applicant and has reviewed the application. We found the plan to be compliant with our land development code. That is section 1220.03E. Subsequently, on Thursday, April 1st of this year, Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the request and voted 3-1 to recommend approval of the rezoning. So this evening, staff is obliged to present ordinance 2021-09 and recommend that council introduce this item for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Merriman. Would anyone like to introduce?
I'll introduce.
Introduced by Mr. Branham. Moving on to Resolution 2021-U, authorizing the purchase of IT security programs and professional services by the IT department up to $75,000 without competitive bidding. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So, council or staff is authorized in many cases to award professional services outside of the bidding process, or council is authorized to do so outside of the bidding process. That oftentimes means that if an expenditure exceeds $25,000, though it's not competitively bid, it still comes back to council for consideration, and council would then approve the award of that bid for professional services. There's one area of professional services that staff views as somewhat unique, and that's professional services related to IT and security. We've had some conversations with council lately about some of our concerns with network security and the ever-growing cyber threats to our city network, and the importance of our city network and maintaining continuity and security there from an operational standpoint. Staff does not believe it to be a great idea for us to bring into a public venue information related to specific programs that we may be using, or even vendors who we may be using for some of these types of services. The bottom line is that we believe the less that bad actors know about our network, the better. And so we really are reluctant to talk about network security in a public setting, really at all. Even a discussion like the one tonight makes us a little bit uncomfortable. When it comes to matters of network security, many of these things are not a public record. I've spoken to our law director about this. If someone were to come in and they were to make a request specific to some arrangement of our city network, how it's protected, what programs we may be using, we would not disseminate that to the public like we would a typical public records request that would be made. There are certain provisions in the law that allow exceptions in those types of circumstances when it's related to security. And so one of the holes that we see from a security standpoint is that although we wouldn't provide that in a records request, we may be giving information in a public meeting that could be valuable to someone who might try to do harm to our network. These services are growing more expensive, and so there are circumstances where a professional service may exceed $25,000. The utilization of a program may exceed that amount. And so we're requesting tonight that council authorize staff to purchase these types of services up to a threshold of $75,000 without coming back to council for an official award. I think that is about as good as I can do in summarizing why we're requesting this. I know it is a bit of an odd request for us to request an authorization of that dollar threshold outside of the normal award process, but we do think that these circumstances are a bit unique. And so we're requesting tonight the passage of Resolution 2021-U, or actually the introduction of Resolution 2021-U. It would authorize us to make those types of purchases outside of the normal process. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
So this is solely just for IT security threats. This would not enable, like, not saying this to be mean, like, say everybody needs a brand new computer, so now we can just go and approve that, correct? This is only solely for the IT security threats, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this would not be for more broadly just any IT service. If we were going to have some large expenditure for internet service with Vectren or with Spectrum or AT&T or something like that. Those types of things would still come back to the council. If it's something that's not specific to security on the city's network, those things would all come back. This is very specific to items that are related to security of the city's network.
If Ryan presents you a large internet service bill from Vectren, you should definitely question it.
Well, I guess all I'd say is the threat's there, right? We know that. And the services, either in terms of hardware, software, or consulting, are really expensive in this area. They just are. But the risk is 10 to 100 times what we're outlaying here in terms of the risk to the city. And so I mean, it seems to be a fairly substantial cost, but unfortunately, in the day and age where we live, this is something we've got to step up and address now, because if we don't, the backside cost could just be horrendous to us as well. So, and every municipality and every federal and state government agency are struggling with the same thing at the same time. Unfortunately, many are way behind the power curve on this, and so I just commend our staff for stepping up and being very proactive, because we could be very passive and try and deal on the back end, and we'd be dealing with a lot different set of numbers. So,
Anyone wants to introduce this?
I'll introduce it.
Introduced by Councilmember Team. Okay, moving on, we have another introduction, Resolution 2021-V, authorizing a property use agreement with Studio B Signs for the use of the city-owned property located at 713 North Detroit Street. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The city owns two parcels located at 713 North Detroit Street. This is adjacent to, or at the intersection, rather, of Ankeny Mill and Detroit Street. The location provides really good visibility for the vehicular traffic that comes through that portion of town. And this was deemed many years ago to be a good location for a community sign. With that in mind, since 2005, we've maintained an arrangement at the location with Studio B Signs, whereby they constructed and they maintain a permanent sign and landscaping and coordinate the weekly rental and messaging on that particular sign. The city provides electricity to the sign, as well as mowing the remainder of the lot there at that location. And in exchange, we also get 7 days per month free use of that sign, which we typically use for special events, charitable activities that are occurring in the community. The contract governing this arrangement is definitely in need of renewal. Staff believes the overall arrangement is beneficial not only to the direct parties, but also to the general public, because it provides a good mechanism for information for folks about activities. So this evening, we are presenting this new use agreement, which would keep in place this long-standing arrangement for use of the sign. One particular point to note, there are some tweaks to the contract that would limit commercial or political advertising as it relates to the sign, and keep that more community-oriented. So with that in mind, staff is recommending introduction of Resolution 2021-V this evening, which would authorize the renewal of this contract under the terms as we've negotiated.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman. Would anyone like to introduce that?
I'll introduce it.
Introduced by the mayor.
I will just add quickly, we are monitoring the radar here because we are under the threat of some potential severe weather, so getting dumped on pretty good at the moment.
Brian, who manages the content of that and the scheduling of the messaging on that?
Studio B themselves, so we contact them in advance to schedule particular weeks during a month that we need. So for example, we will want that signage for the fireworks festival coming up in July, so probably that last week of June. We'll reserve that week. And then I'm trying to think of his name.
Tim Harner.
Tim Harner, his business operation, they manage that. So you'll see, I think just a week ago, I think Xenia had one. So
Right, sure.
that's the typical
Yeah.
type of
They do.
signage that you see there, yeah.
Yeah.
And, again, in full disclosure, I think he has a very, very small profit margin he makes on that. But again, he has some cost directly into it, in addition to the initial cost that they had to install the sign. And of course, they maintain a landscaping around it.
Right, great.
Any other questions?
Can other organizations contractor use the sign also?
Yes, again, focusing on charitable, not-for-profit, governmental, that sort of thing. So we've seen Council on Aging, I've seen use it before, public health, other county
Churches
agencies,
use
other
it.
local churches, so, yeah, yep.
Glad to see some limits on what can be put there.
Yeah, yeah. Did we get an introduction?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
Mayor
on
Mays.
Thursday. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to administrative motion. Administrative motion, accepting the city, I am out of place, so, accepting the city's budget priorities for 2022. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you. The city charter requires that the city council approve budget priorities each year for the city of Xenia for the ensuing year's budget cycle. These priorities must be approved no later than July 1st. Staff has recommended the approval of the priorities well in advance, and this allows us to incorporate these priorities into the development of our tax budget, which is actually typically due before or finished before that July 1st deadline. The Council Budget Committee, Budget and Finance Committee met on March 11th to discuss the proposed budget priorities for 2022. Attached to your agenda report this evening is the detailed list of amended priorities approved by the committee and ready for presentation this evening. And the committee did have some tweaks to the original recommendations that were submitted. The overarching priorities include the following: development of a funded long-term strategy for city infrastructure, position Xenia for economic investment, retain quality employees, attract new talent, and assess current position retention, continue to provide quality and efficient municipal services, build a healthier community, continue to practice sound financial management, and seek strategic solutions for ongoing challenges. And of course, we have various priorities more specifically detailed among each of these categories. So the Budget and Finance Committee is recommending approval of these as submitted. And we would ask for a motion, administrative motion this evening to make these formal.
Thank you, Mr. Merriman. Would anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Dean,
I'll second that.
seconded by Mr. Branham. Or anyone have any questions?
Mr. President? With these priorities that we've adopted, we worked pretty hard on setting them, and we've had a couple of plenary meetings about them, so I'd like to see this ball really get kicked off here, so. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Duke.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Now moving on to another administrative motion, approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $163,000. That's next. $163,000 and $163,061.20. Would anyone like to make a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Second, please.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Dean. Any questions about the bills? Seeing none, roll call.
No questions.
Okay. Seeing none, roll call, please. Mr.
Councilman
Duke.
Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, moving on, we have our last administrative motion, accepting the City of Xenia Charter Review Commission's report to council on recommended charter amendments for placement on the November 2nd, 2021 ballot. Ms. Fisher.
We wrote you a book.
Right.
It's true. This is the commission's report. In 2019, council appointed a charter review commission. As you will recall, the voters of Xenia enacted Section 805 in 2018. That created the Charter Review Commission in our city's charter. We had an absolutely outstanding group of citizens. We had 2 council members, Mayor Mays and Councilman Scrivens, involved. And since 2019, we have been going through the city's charter, section by section. We gave these folks a lot of homework, There was a lot of background for them to learn. Important, I felt, for them to understand what the law says, so they could understand why we may be recommending some changes. So a lot of work right here. Tonight, you are simply accepting this. You are not approving it.
Right.
This is not an approval of the amendments. What council will do is the next step. By accepting this, council can now begin its review of this report. What council can do, you can't amend anything that the commission has recommended. The charter does not allow that. But it is council's decision whether or not to present these proposed amendments to the voters at the November 2nd, 2021 election. Just for the public, council can't amend the charter, only the voters can amend it. So what you would be deciding is, do we want to present these amendments to the voters? Your window to do that per the state constitution is July 5th to September. So if council would choose to present all or any part of these amendments to the voters, then we will be discussing an ordinance passage at that time to send to the Board of Elections. We wanted to get this before you tonight. The Charter Review Commission just had its last meeting on Tuesday. We wanted to get this to you tonight, 102 pages, it's a lot to digest. We would like to get a special meeting set up between council and the commission members. We're looking at April 29th, since we have that extra meeting date. But we wanted council to have a chance to be able to review this so that you can have the discussion with the commission. We did give you in here, there's an executive summary breaking down what most of the major changes we're suggesting are. You will note as you go through our actual recommendations, there is a rationale block after each and every section and subsection. The commission was very clear. One of the things we wanted to be sure we did was explain why we're suggesting the changes that we're suggesting. The majority of what you'll find is simply reorganization. There were a lot of things kind of spread throughout the charter. We wanted to consolidate those. Article 9, for example, finance, each thing that was its own section, a lot of that would just condense down into individual sections. So there's a lot for you to read, but we would like you to accept this report tonight. And by accept, I mean you're simply receiving it. You're not approving it. But if you will receive this tonight, then we can begin the process of reviewing these amendments with council.
I have one question.
Absolutely.
We can't amend it, I know that, and we can only present it to the voters. Can we only present certain parts of it to the voters, or do we have to present all of it or none of it?
Yes, you may. That is within council's discretion to decide how to present it. The commission, you will find as you read the report, the commission is recommending that this be presented as a whole, because a lot of sections refer to each other. If council doesn't want to do that, then council can choose to break it down, and we're going to present just these amendments. Maybe you present one set at one election, one set at the next election. There may be some that you decide you don't want to present at all. That is council's choice. You can't change any of the amendments that have been recommended, but you choose whether or not to present those to the voters.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please, to introduce? Moved by Councilman Scrivens,
I'd like to second that.
seconded by the mayor. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Vice President, I just wanted, for the record, to extend gratitude to the law director and the city clerk. They've innumerable hours in this process, and appreciate their hard work and efforts. And then absolutely, perhaps even more so, to the citizen volunteers who invested a great deal of time in this process. They were thoughtful, they did their homework, asked great questions, pushed back and challenged on different issues. So it's a thankless job that's not paid, and they did a fantastic job in executing that. So just wanted to again extend a thank you to them on behalf of the staff for all of their efforts with this.
One of our alternates is here tonight, Nancy McPeak, who faithfully came to every meeting before she was even an alternate, just to be up to speed as a citizen. And so she was an easy alternate once that position became open, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that the process would be, we would pass an ordinance that would be sent to the Board of Elections, and then the Board of Elections then would incorporate that within the ballot material.
Correct.
If we choose to go through that, and the time frame that we have to enact that per the statutory requirements is from July through September.
It's a constitutional
Constitutional.
requirement, yeah. And we did outline the charter amendment process for you. It's on page 2 of your report.
Right.
These requirements, you'll note one thing, the Board of Elections now, a lot of the things we have to present 90 days before the election.
Right.
Well, this is Ohio Constitution required, and the Constitution still states 120 to 60 days. So council's window is Monday, July 5th through Friday, September 3rd.
Okay.
So we'd probably be, if council decides it wants to present any of these amendments, we'd probably look at wanting to introduce that late July, beginning of August.
Right.
It's all on page 2.
Okay.
This is not glamorous reading, not thrilling, exciting reading, but I would strongly encourage the council to take some time and dive into this. Your decision as a group as to what you will forward to the voters is extremely important and consequential to our city's operations and our overall operational structure. So if at any point as you begin to review this, as Danette suggested, we want that joint meeting with the commission to provide you an opportunity to get some perspective from them. But at any point through this entire process, if you do have questions, comments, concerns, why this, why that, any of us can be a resource. Certainly, Danette probably the best of us all. But we just strongly encourage you to begin to look at this and digest it, because this is extremely important. We have not done an update to this charter in decades, and we look at how the world has changed around us. Making sure that our system of governance is keeping up with that pace of modern day life is pretty important. So just a final plug to encourage you to invest some time in reviewing this.
Well, and if there are any sections of this that you hit, you'll find, for example, in Article 9, the finance, you'll see that we talk a lot about the uniform tax levy law. It's a general law of the state. It's not something the charter can differ from. If you don't feel you know enough about the uniform tax levy law, pretty much every single article that's in this report, the Charter Review Commission was given background information by me. They were giving handouts. Here's what state civil service law is. Here's what the uniform tax levy law is. So if at any point you're reviewing any of this and you want any of that background information, please just let me know and I'd be happy to send it to you. It's also in all the minutes and materials from the commission meetings. So you can actually contact myself or Michelle and we can get it to you.
Just one final point, if I may, as well. The city clerk has put together an excellent sort of historical record of the history of charter changes in our community. And that history would reflect a generally skeptical public. And that means that substantive changes of any scale, much less the prospect of a pretty comprehensive charter replacement, means that a lot of public engagement and the time that it will take to undertake that public engagement will be extremely important, so that voters going to the ballot in November, should you choose to advance this in part or in whole, a lot of engagement with them so they can be educated in making that decision. So we recognize that our voters are not used to this, it's not familiar to them, and voters who are not familiar with things tend to be skeptical of them. And so it's important that as we continue down this path together, that we're keeping in mind the importance of reaching out to the public and educating the general public on what's being presented.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to also thank Ms. Nancy McPeak for her undying support of the review process. As the mayor said, she attended in the beginning as a concerned citizen. So we thank you as a citizen for being concerned. But she advanced because she did her homework. Her presence was known. She didn't have a vote on a lot of the issues, but her presence was known and her influence was felt, and we appreciate your participation. And with that, Mr. President, I just know that we've done a comprehensive review of every point in the charter, and I would consider it now to be modified, updated, and ready for the 21st century. When we began this process 32 years ago, and got a charter passed in 1992 and then in 98. This is the first actual review since 1998. And as the city manager said, the world has changed right under our feet. So this now brings us current, and it gives us a document which should endure for at least the next 5 years when we have our next charter review commissions. But I want to compliment not only the law director for her entire work, but also our our city clerk, to produce all of this and make it in a form that management can digest is a task. And I'll compliment both of them on how they simplified the whole process and made it palatable for all of us. Now, granted, 102 pages is actually the backbone of what we operate with. This is our roadmap of government. So we need to consider it seriously and then present it to our public and educate them on why we need to update our charter.
I would add,
Thank you, Mr.
Councilman,
President.
I would just add as well, though, that the core structure of our governance system, the Constitution of our council, our appointed officials and so forth, most of that doesn't change in this. A lot of the changes are reorganization of our charter. There are some substantive changes that we believe that would improve the governance system and improve transparency to the public. And those are things that I think we need to concentrate on with the community and explaining why. But I think it's also very important to stress that this does not change the core constitution of our local government from what it exists today.
Any other comments or questions?
So then is it based upon a majority vote then at the election as to whether it is?
I'm
it-
sorry,
I'm sorry, yeah, so
just-
at the election, it's based upon a majority vote of the electors that come, or the voters that come at that point, right? And
Correct.
if it passes with a majority vote, then that becomes our new baseline charter
It
for
would
the
become
city
effective January 1st.
of the next year, right? And if I understand, we also have a legal requirement per the state constitution that we have to mail to each elector a copy of the proposed changes.
There's two options. You either mail, what the Constitution says is you mail, or you can use another process that's provided by statute. And the Ohio General Assembly did provide by statute, there is publication in the paper option. That's something we will need to discuss going forward, how we want to do that. A lot of the things, a number of the changes that we made in here, smaller things, were, as Councilman Scriven said, recognizing that in 1998, we did not have these.
Right.
And if you had one, it was a big box, and all it did was make phone calls. So the ability to get on and disseminate information wasn't the same. So we recognize that in here. That's something that the charter amendment process in the state constitution hasn't really recognized.
Correct, right.
So it may be something as simple as putting something in every utility bill. Hey, this entire document is available. I mean, we're going to post this on the city's website. So anybody can get in and read it and look at it. We want the public to read it. We want them to ask questions. But there are absolutely notification requirements that we will get out. And our hope was, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on what the public health orders are, our hope was to be able to have some town hall meetings, that our citizens could come in and ask questions. So we'll see if we're able to do that.
And the council will need to deliberate as to, what is it you want to pursue in terms of those outreach methodologies. We have resources that were included in the budget to be able to, to look at things like printing. We want to do mass printings. But again, as Danette is suggesting, a combination of approaches to meet different types of community members where they're at so they can be informed to make an informed decision come November.
Still need to vote on it, to accept it. So, Mr. Duke, call the roll, please.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Motion accepted. Okay, so we'll now move on to appointed officials reports. We will start with Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of items this evening. First, I've promised council that staff would be producing and publishing a report on the state of public safety. We're hoping to have that out by the end of the first quarter, but for a host of reasons, we've had to delay that. So I'm looking at having that prepared for the second quarter. My intentions would be to have our newly seated Public Safety Committee would be the first group to receive that report, and then we come back to the entire council and discuss that. And of course, that'll look at the core components of our public safety operation, including fire rescue, police, our dispatch services, as well as our emergency management preparation. So look for that probably in the May to June timeframe. Second, I wanted to give a shout out to Key Chrysler. They have been a fantastic community partner with us. We're showing images of the new Dare vehicle that we've just put into service, and Key Chrysler has donated the use of this fantastic vehicle. We had it mudding and bogging in the offer. No, we did not. I'm just kidding. It is capable of a lot of things, but it's a big bang in terms of the visual appeal, and the intent is to get the attention of kids and others in our community at risk of problems, and to help make a statement. So Key Chrysler has been a fantastic partner of the city and of this community for many years. I can't give them enough credit, and we just wanted to take a minute tonight to say a big thank you to them and give them a shout out. Thanks on behalf of the council and staff for what they've done there. This is the second time that they've done this for us, and they have promised to continue that program into the future. So. And then finally, as I mentioned, we will be getting the Public Safety Committee, also the Utilities, Transportation, and Property Management Committees, the newly created standing committees of council. We will be making contact with those committee members, as I do have a number of items that we want to bring those to those committees and begin some conversation. Probably not scheduling those this month. We'll probably look to schedule them for May and get those discussions started in depth. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Merriman. I'll move on to the Finance Director, Mr. Duke.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd just like to remind everyone that the city does follow the federal and state tax filing deadline, so that has been moved to Monday, May 17th. So just remind everyone that that's coming up, and they can contact Rita or even our office, and we'll get them pointed in the right direction for filing their taxes. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. We'll move on to our Law Director, Ms. Fisher.
Just one thing to touch base. I emailed you all earlier this week the problem property on East 2nd Street.
Right.
We had gotten the letter from the neighbors, I believe it was the last meeting. That property had already been on our radar. There were some steps we needed to take to get to where we are. This will be, my understanding is this is the first of these that has ever been filed in Greene County.
Right.
So it's kind of going to be a learning process for Greene County. I would expect that hearing to be scheduled either next Friday or the following Monday, somewhere in that ballpark. So once we do have that hearing, I will reach out to all of you and let you know what the outcome of that is.
Donette, is that in the municipal court, that hearing?
No, it's common police court.
Common police court, okay.
Is that it?
That's all I had. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. We will then move on to reports of boards and commissions. We'll start with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Councilman Brown.
Yes, we met on April 1st. I first would like to thank Brian for taking time out of his birthday to meet with Planning and Zoning Commission. So we really appreciate that, and appreciate you taking time out of your special day. We met on two separate cases. One we actually introduced earlier. That was the request to rezone the 52-acre tract with the city of Xenia from Plan PUD and A1 Agricultural District. And then we also met on a conditional use request to utilize a single-family home as a fine arts studio and host individual and small group art lessons on Galloway Street. Both of these were approved by Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next is Traffic Commission. I'm the chair of that. We did not meet. It was canceled for lack of agenda items. Then we had BRACA, which is chaired by President Smith. That was also canceled. I don't know why, but I'm assuming it was lack of agenda items as well. Yes, that is, okay. So moving on, we've got council comments. I will start to my left. Ms. Dean.
Thank you. I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Scrivens.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Just a few things. Glad to know about the tax filing deadline. We need to reiterate that and have it on the billboard and big, because I had a few people call me and ask me. I said, hey, I'll call you when I know. Definitely want to thank Key Chrysler for stepping up to the plate again. Key, you're super. You're what city hospitality is all about. We thank you. The Easter egg hunt, I understand that went well, and I compliment our mayor and Councilman Urschel, and I think Council President Smith was participating in that. So thank you guys for your leadership on that, and anything that we do to bring joy to children has to be a good thing. So understand now this after April the 1st, that means the street sweepers out of mothballs. So that means the curbs and the gutters, time to get them shipped up here. And this being the rainy season, we definitely want to keep our catch basins without debris. Water accumulates, it gets under the roadbed, and you know what that story is. Definitely want to thank all of the members of the Charter Review Commission who took their time over a period of 1.5 years to review every section of the charter and come up with what we think is like the very best option for the city. And then we definitely want to express our condolence to our high school classmate and my class president. I voted for Jim Kennedy 3 years straight as our class president. We knew then he was our leader, and we kept him as class president throughout the years. He couldn't resign. We told him it was your title for life. So now that he's had his life and we mourn his passing, I talked to his son there tonight, and I said, well, the baton now gets passed to you, and we'll see how you go around the track. And we will be watching. So Joe's motivated to press on with the Kennedy value and the Kennedy name, and we just thank the whole Kennedy family for who they've been to us since the early 60s. So we thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scrivens. Councilman Brandon.
I would just like to thank Josh Kell. I seen him out and about in the street sweeper this past week. So they are out and about, Scriv.
Very good.
Which is a good thing. I did have a couple of community members that came to me about some complaints of some gravel that's sitting on Bellbrook where they're hauling a bunch of dirt into the back of the storage unit complex. I don't think that that's really a City of Xenia issue. I think it's more of a contractor issue of whoever is authorizing the hauling of topsoil.
So lower Bellbrook?
Yep.
Right.
Our engineering team, though, does provide oversight with that, so I'll give them a heads up, and they will have compliance with that, because it does create a bit of a safety hazard.
Yep, there was just, mostly it was motorcycle riders that were like, hey, we're really concerned about this, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, I get it. So I was surprised the other day, I went down through there and I couldn't believe the amount, there was like 3 trucks already sitting there. I've noticed some gravel or dirt being set there a little bit here and there, but it seems like it must be a pretty decent project that they're dumping a lot in there.
I'll pass it along.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, Councilman Urschel.
Here's 2 items. I just want to thank the mayor for inviting us to come pick up trash in the city. So we took a week or so ago, Saturday?
27th.
The 27th, and it was just good. We had a number of the staff and the council members and the family members, and it was just a good group of us from, 4 years old and up, and I was amazed at how much area we could cover downtown picking trash up, which was great. So Brian, it was good to have you out there, and Jared with your family as well. Thanks you guys for coming out, and it was a good time. But also just a reminder too that a lot of times we complain and ask who else is going to go do these things, right? And it doesn't take much just to step up and do it yourself. So it was great. Obviously, this is as many square miles we have in the city. We got a lot of other places that folks could come and do that. And so I just encourage folks, if you have a community organization or your church or group at school and stuff. That's a great opportunity. And boy, just folks were just appreciative, driving by and honking their horns and saying thank you. We had somebody drove up and gave us donuts for the kids and stuff too. And just so I mean, people appreciate folks just stepping up and volunteering in the community. So that was a good thing. And I just also want to pay my respect to Jim Kennedy. For those of us, in the faith community in town, Jim has always been the guy, kind of the go-to guy for wisdom in our city. And as folks have struggled in parachurch groups and church groups, Jim was always a guy that you could go to and say, Jim, I just need some help and some counsel and wisdom. And there's nothing that with Jim that he was ever said, this is just too big or too much of a problem. He said, okay, let's just, dive into it and pray about it and work on it. And the hundreds of things that he did that nobody just knew anything about, he never did it for personal recognition, but he was just generous with his finances and his abilities to come alongside. And one of the things I just think about is with Nate, when he got going with the Cleft here in town, the youth center. And here's a young guy, just had a vision to help out kids in the community, and he grabbed Jim and said, Jim, I just need help. And you know what? Jim spent a lot of time with that. That's just one example of things. But nobody knew that he was doing that. Nobody knew he was on the board. Nobody knew, because he never said anything about it. But I just think about hundreds of kids that have been impacted through that. That's just one avenue of that. So anyways, just Jim is the kind of guy that the rest of us hope that we're going to grow up and be like. And he did that through his entire life. He never retired from that. He never said, okay, now I'm done serving. And he just pressed on through his entire life. So what a joy, and we thank you to Jim and his family. We agree with them, and it's going to be a year first for them without having him around. And so just encourage everybody to continue to walk alongside his family. The funeral tomorrow, if you can, part of the group that know him, be able to attend that, and just to encourage the family, but not only tomorrow, but through the year first without having Jim around with the family as well. Yeah. That's all I have tonight.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. A couple things. I just wanted to congratulate Rob and Danielle Eldridge on their toy show, and I don't know,
Yeah.
for those of us that got to go to it, it was phenomenal. I mean, it was packed, crazy crowded, and what was really fun was talking to some of the vendors, just casually. They didn't know who I was, and they just were saying, man, this is so great. They would just say, the people that are running this are amazing, and that they own a toy store here in town, and I don't know if you know them. They would just, multiple people talked about them and the work that they're doing. Plus, they have their new store that opened that day, and they did that very purposefully to send traffic to downtown. They're a team player, and they wanted, as people left, they gave them the flyer, go back downtown Xenia, go to some of the shops, go see our new toy store. I talked to Troy at Rusty and Chippy's. They were having a great day because of it.
Yeah.
So it was really a lot of fun. So congratulations to them. Had some good meetings in the last couple of weeks with some of our different county partners. Had an opportunity to meet with the mayor of Sydney. He's doing an Ohio tour of all the county seats, and he's got some great vision for the OML. And it was really nice to meet with him and to chat with another mayor and to see some of the similar challenges and things that we want to work on just kind of on a broader scale. I also want to extend my thanks to Key Chrysler. The truck looks amazing. I can't wait to see it in person and maybe sit in it. I'm just saying. The Easter egg hunt, it was a really good day. On Monday of that week, we had some high school students, National Honor Society kids, that came and volunteered to stuff the bags. We tried to get 20 eggs in each bag, plus we had some flyers from different churches and one bistro and Easter invites from churches, and those kids just did a great job. They worked hard and they did it quickly, and then some of the same group and some new kids came on Saturday, high schoolers, to help. They really put a lot into it. Keith Cook and Michael, whose last name I didn't write down, from public service, they did a great job helping with the park and keeping traffic flowing. Sergeant Osborne, they just all, and he took one for the team because he took a picture with Paw Patrol for me. So they did a great job. Everybody was super excited that there was the surprise visit from Paw Patrol, and where I was standing, as the kids rolled down their windows, to hear them like multiple times over and over, Mom! They were so excited. So it was just a really fun Saturday, and I'm very thankful for everybody that helped make that happen. Of course, I as well want to extend my sympathies to the Kennedy family. When my dad passed, Joe, he walked that road with us as well, and I just remember the way he reached out to my family to honor my dad, and I just feel that same sentiment with him of his dad, who loves this community very much and has instilled that legacy in his son, and it's just so obvious. They're cheerleaders for this community, and they care very deeply, so I'm very sorry for their loss. And I do want to take a minute to talk about Steve Helling's memorial service, the funeral. I asked Corey and Chief Rigsby to send me a list of everybody who in the community helped make that day happen. We had different communities covering our fire stations. Sewing sent their group from their ER to our ER so that they could be a part of the funeral. I'm going to read this list off because it truly just amazed me how many different communities showed up to take care of us. Xenia Township Fire Department, Spring Valley Township Fire Department, Inglewood Fire Department, Trotwood Fire Department, Trotwood Honor Guard, West Alexandria EMS, Miami Township Fire Rescue, Greene County Sheriff Department, Beaver Creek Township Fire Department, Xenia Public Service, Xenia Police Department, Dayton Fire Department, Cedarville Township Fire Department, Ohio Patriot Guard Motorcycle Riders, Turning It Up on Cancer Pink Medic, Sugar Creek Township Fire Department, Tip City Fire Department, Chester Township Fire Department, Wilmington Fire Department, Bellbrook Fire Department, Washington Township Fire Department, Huber Heights Fire Department, Fairborn Fire Department, Riverside Fire Department, Kettering Health Network Mobile Care, Kettering Fire Department, Jefferson Township Fire Department, New Jasper Township Fire Department, Goshen Township Fire Department, Columbus Fire Department, Brookville Fire Department, Bethel Township Fire Department, Monroe Township Fire Department, Miami Valley Fire District, Move Over Ohio, Vandalia Fire Department, MedFlight, Greene County Fairgrounds, Xenia AHOP, City Barbecue, Xenia Coffee Hub, Dayton Firefighters Local 136, Flying Cross, Phoenix Outfitters, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Fire Department. It was an incredible service, and I specifically want to tell Corey Strout, Tim Norris, Jeff Bergman, and Scott Burrows. They put this together, and they worked very hard on it to honor Steve and his family. So, thank you to these many communities. Thank you to the people who put time into this, and thank you to our guys who honored their brother well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't really think I can follow that up. Those are good words by everyone all around. A lot of sadness, so just be praying overall. We did have a work session scheduled, but that's been canceled, so I think without anything else, we'll ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Dean,
And now that I got my second shot, I'll second that.
seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Roll call.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Motion carried.